Good evening. The meeting of the Committee on Student Achievement and School Innovation of the Board of School Directors will please come to order. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Director Carr.
Here.
Director Gokul Gandhi.
Present.
Director Leonard.
Present.
Director O'Halloran.
Here.
And Chair Seamson.
Present.
That's 5 members present, I'm sorry.
The Chair will now ask the Secretary to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. The Chair invites any members of the audience who wish to participate to do so and asks that those who do not wish to participate please remain silent during the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This meeting is being conducted in person from the Central Services Building. In order to allow as much public access and participation as possible, this meeting is also being broadcast via live stream on the MPS website and on the MPS YouTube stream, the links to which may be found on the MPS website on the broadcast page. Before we begin tonight's meeting, we have a short announcement regarding interpretation services for the Spanish-speaking members of our audience.
Buenas tardes y bienvenidos a la Junta Escolar de las Escuelas Públicas de Milwaukee. Si desea escuchar esta reunión en español, por favor llame al 312-626-6799. Nuevamente, 312-626-6799. E introduzca el número de reunión 608-130-5362. Nuevamente, el número de reunión es 608-130-5362. Gracias.
Thank you. For each of our items of business, we will hold a discussion and public hearing. We have no virtual speakers registered. Members of the audience who wish to speak should please fill out a speaker slip and bring it to our secretary, Ms. Koala. When you are called upon to speak, please state your name and spell your last name for the record. For the sake of fairness and to give everyone a chance to speak, the chair reserves the right to limit the length of time allowed to any one speaker. Written testimony will be accepted for transmittal to the board. Send this testimony to the Office of Board Governance, P.O. Box 2181, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53201-2181, or fax to 414-475-8071, or email it to governance@milwaukee.k12.wi.us. Just as a reminder, Robert's Rules of Order dictates that all comments should be directed to the chair of the committee. Also, any questions or requests, including those from the public, committee members, or the administration, are to be directed toward the chair, who will determine the most efficient way to address them. For the safety of all and to ensure the good order of the meeting, harassment or intimidation tactics of any kind will not be tolerated. Anyone who engages in such harassing or intimidating words or actions will immediately be asked to cease. If such behavior continues, a recess will be called and the offending parties will be removed from the meeting. Anyone ejected from the meeting may continue to listen to the meeting or access the agenda items online. However, the individual will not be allowed to rejoin the meeting. Also, no one other than members of the board, designated staff, and those who have been invited to present or participate in items of business will be allowed on stage before, during, or after meetings of the board and its committees. Finally, for our listening audience, if you wish to access this evening's agenda items and attachments online, you may do so by visiting the Meetings, Agendas, and Minutes page of the MPS website. Now let's begin. Madam Secretary, item number 1.
Item 1 is a report with possible action on the Deaf and Hard of Hearing Task Force. This is an informational item. Although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Will administration please present this item?
Madam Chair and members of the committee, Keith Posley, Superintendent of Schools. At the March 23rd, 2023 board meeting, Resolution 2223R-018 by Directors Peterson and Herndon on the creation of a Deaf and Hard of Hearing Task Force was referred to the Committee on Student Achievement and Student Innovation and adopted at the April 2023 board meeting, and updated on the development of the task force will be presented in June of 2023. This evening, I have with me Dr. Travis Pinter, Senior Director, Specialized Services, to share out the updates and the progress of the task force. Following the presentation, we'll be more than happy to entertain any questions that you may have. Dr. Pinter.
Thank you, Dr. Posley. Good evening, Chair Seamson, members of the committee, Travis Pinter, Senior Director of Specialized Services. It's a pleasure to be able to share our update on the DHH Task Force with you tonight. I'm joined by the co-chairs of the task force, Linda Lou Fox-Wheeler and Marcy Dicker, who will introduce themselves a bit later in the presentation. So we begin with the district's 5 priorities for success. The work of the task force will ultimately impact 3 of the 5 priorities, in particular, improving our district and school culture, ensuring fiscal responsibility and transparency, and strengthening communication and collaboration. The resolution to form a task force brought forward by Directors Peterson and Herndon passed in April of 2023. The task force was charged with examining the current MPS DHH policies and procedures in the context of research-based best practices. An initial meeting was conducted in May, at which point more than 50 individuals expressed interest in joining the task force. At that meeting, the co-chairs were also elected via popular vote. Subsequent meetings of the full task force have taken place from August of last year through February of this year and continue to take place every 6 weeks. In addition, leadership meetings that include the co-chairs and me currently take place on a bi-weekly basis. The purpose of these meetings is to plan for upcoming large group meetings and ensure that the work remains focused on the specifics of the resolution. Marcy Dicker will now explain the 2 phases of the task force.
Chair Seamson, members of the committee, I'm Marcy Dicker, M-A-R-C-Y-D-I-C-K-E-R, co-chair of the DHH Task Force. The board resolution called for action related to 2 goals that we conceived of as occurring in 2 phases. The first phase involves surveying the key stakeholders on the strengths and weaknesses of the current design and the efficiency of the current program locations. Phase 1 also includes conducting a thorough review of the MPS DHH program and other programs around Wisconsin and the country, as well as analyzing the current deaf education research. The second phase involves the development of recommendations for the board. During this phase, the task force will utilize what it's learned in Phase 1 to consider the possibility of program design and location changes for the DHH program, as well as financial impact and the impact to staff, including certification requirements. Phase 2 also includes a review of the assessment and placement process currently utilized by MPS. The task force is currently still in Phase 1. Linda Lou Fox-Wheeler will now explain the subcommittees that have formed during the Phase 1.
Chair Seaman, members of the committee, I'm Linda Lou Fox-Wheeler, co-chair of the Deaf and Hard of Hearing Task Force. In order to efficiently address some of the requirements of the resolution, the task force opted to form multiple subcommittees. These ultimately included 3 subcommittees. The first has focused on conducting research on local and state programming and resources. This has included surveying Wisconsin districts about their DHH services. The second has focused on conducting research on a national level. In addition to conducting peer-reviewed research on best practices, this subcommittee reached out to other urban districts throughout our Council of Great City Schools connections and is currently gathering any relevant information. They've also created a survey for leaders in similarly sized school districts across the country. That particular committee is still in data gathering mode. The third has focused on developing a survey for our stakeholders and has received guidance through the MPS research, assessment, and data team. We're looking to partner with those particular departments to develop our survey. I will now turn it back over to Travis Pinter to summarize our current outcomes.
Chair Simpson, members of the committee, Travis Pinter, Senior Director of Specialized Services. Thus far, the research has often indicated that more research is required due to small sample sizes or inconclusive outcomes. And so the task force continues to seek out an evidence base for informing its recommendations. There is no district quite like MPS in the rest of the state, so further understanding of what other large urban districts are doing will also be useful. We also continue to develop the survey, which, due to the rather varied group of recipients required by the resolution, likely requires multiple surveys and/or multiple survey stages. That survey is nearly completed and includes ASL video assistance. It will ultimately target all stakeholders identified in the resolution. In short, Phase 1 is moving along and nearly complete, and we hope to be firmly into Phase 2 or in the process of developing recommendations by the next time we report out to the board. Thank you for your time. We're happy to answer any questions you have at this time.
Thank you very much. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Director Gokul Gandhi.
Can you tell us, thus far in your research, have you found any other programs that are best in class? And in your initial benchmarking, how do we meet or not meet those standards?
Administration.
I'm going to focus on the state of Wisconsin as far as some of our data gathering. We haven't quite found everything on a nation level yet. From the surveys we've done and comparing programs throughout the state, the closest we've come is Green Bay. That is the next largest district that has a program similar to ours. And really talking to them that we're the only school that separates the speech program or the oral communication program compared with sign language used students. Everyone else blends those programs into one school, and those students attend school together. We're the only district that really separates those students based on communication method. We're looking for some nationwide data, and we're looking at one. I know Marcy will be making connections about that particular district that we would like to gather some information from.
Chair Simpson, members of the committee. Thank you. I'm Marcy Dicker. There is one program in Boston that we've identified. It's a large city district that has a very successful deaf and hard of hearing program, very vibrant, and it is a district that we've identified as being possibly similar to MPS, and we're in the process of figuring out how to connect with that particular program.
A follow-up. Director Gokul Gandhi.
Do you feel like you've been satisfied with the amount of cooperation that you're getting in moving the agenda forward to discover what you need to for Phase 2?
Administration.
Chair Simpson, members of the committee, I believe that it's a long process. It takes a while, and there are a lot of people who would like to sort of This phase one is a hard phase because it's information collection and everybody wants to take action. And so it's taken a while to settle into the idea that we're just gathering information right now. But I think people are figuring that out, and we've seen a lot more progress in the last couple months moving forward, putting reports together and surveys. Did I answer your question?
Thank you, Director Gokul-Gundy. Any other comments or questions from members of the board? No? All right. Do we have any members in the audience who wish to make comments?
Madam Chair, we had no request to speak on this item.
All right, thank you. No other questions? Thank you for the work. I know our DHH program has a very long history in the district, so working through these issues, I can appreciate the time and the effort that's going into it, so thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item 2, a report with possible action on urban school transformation. This is an informational item. Although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Would administration please present this item?
Madam Chair and members of the committee, at the September SASI meeting, the administration introduced to you the Formative School Transformation Coach and Team. This evening, I'm happy to share with you that Dr. Kiana Jones, Assistant Superintendent, State Superintendent, and Dr. Jennifer Hernandez, Senior Director of CISA 1, and Mr. Ben Keltner, Director of Title I Continuous Improvement for the Department of Public Instructions, are back with us to share an update on the progress of their work. Following the presentation, we'll be more than happy to entertain any questions that you may have. Dr. Jones, take it away.
Good evening, Chair Simpson and members of the committee. My name is Dr. Kiana S. Jones, and I am the Assistant Superintendent for the Division of Student and School Success at the Department of Public Instruction here in Wisconsin. DPI is returning today to share updates and progress relative to the Urban School Transformation Program. You first heard from us in September of 2023. Under Every Student Succeeds Act, DPI has plan approval and monitoring responsibility for Milwaukee Public Schools. In strong collaboration with MPS and CISA, the Urban School Transformation Program has been developed and implemented to promote school improvement, change adult practices, enhance systems, refine practices, and advance educational equity. I would like to reintroduce Ben Ketterer, DPI Director for Continuous Improvement, and Dr. Jennifer Hernandez, Urban School Transformation Director, who will share more specific details and data relative about the program's implementation thus far.
Chair Simpson and members of the committee, my name is Ben Ketterer. I'm the Director of the Title I Continuous Improvement Team at the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction. The Urban Schools Transformation Initiative is part of DPI's supports for Milwaukee Public Schools and their continuous improvement efforts. This collaboration between DPI CISA 1 and the Milwaukee Public Schools is focused on facilitating the development of innovative practices and systems development and implementation with MPS to drive rapid school improvement. Under the leadership of the Assistant State Superintendent for the Division of Student and School Success, Dr. Kiana Jones, and in collaboration with the DPI Title I Continuous Improvement Team, the Executive Director of the Urban Schools Transformation Initiative, Dr. Jennifer Hernandez, and I support districts in assessing and accessing the tools and supports from both DPI and CISA number 1 to systematize a continuous improvement culture while focusing on systems development. Since January of 2023, we've been working on this initiative with Milwaukee Public Schools, and we'd like to share a progress update on the 3 priorities as well as briefly speak to upcoming work. DPI is pleased to continue this partnership in pursuit of improved outcomes for students, and we look forward to deepening the work and impact. With that, I'll pass to my colleague, Dr. Hernandez, to speak to the progress thus far. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening, Chair Simpson and members of the committee. My name is Dr. Jennifer Hernandez. I'm Executive Director of the Urban School Transformation Initiative. Sorry. There we go. The district continuous improvement plan continues to guide the work of the Urban School Transformation Initiative. Within the 5 priorities for success, this work centers on increased academic achievement and accountability and developing our staff. Central Regions Initiative, Central Reads, has been supported by the Science of Reading professional learning offered by CISA 1 and coaching that is a collaboration between MPS internal coaches and the external coaches, literacy coaches from CISA 1. In the high school region, climate equity liaisons are holding professional learning committees and students participating in specific roles. The Principal Leadership Institute is focusing on the board resolution regarding shared leadership. All three priority areas focus on developing staff to support academic achievement. I would like to share with you the data we have collected so far on each of these priority areas. Looking at Central Read's data, we were able to compare our current data to last year's data. This second year for the Central Reads initiative. This is a celebration. We have doubled the number of walkthrough observations within the Central region from last year's Cycle 1. It is important to note that we do begin 1 month earlier this year and capture data from February, which is 1 month past last year's data. This next graph illustrates the grade levels observed within Central Region, a comparison between 22-23 school year and 23-24 school year during Cycle 1. We see an increase in grades 3 through 5 by 4%. By the second cycle, we see an increase across all grades. This next slide indicates teacher practices observed during these walkthroughs. Teachers have received professional development on evidence-based practices for academic engagement, formative practices, and explicit instruction. This slide indicates an increase across all areas from Cycle 1 last year to Cycle 1 this year. When looking at Cycle 1 and Cycle 2 from this year only, we see a decrease in formative practices and explicit instruction and an increase in academic engagement. Teachers did not receive consistent professional development. The January session was canceled and the February session held for kindergarten through second grade, and while the teachers in third through fifth grade were pulled for other duties. CISA coaches used the hours for coaching instead of presenting. Professional development is not mandatory, and therefore teachers may choose not to attend each month. For the shared leadership board resolution with the Principal Leadership Institute, this is the first year of implementing the resolution on shared leadership. These slides will be looking at exit responses from Cycle 1 and Cycle 2 of the Principal Leadership Institute. To this open-ended question, what is the one thing you learned today about shared leadership in October? We had building leaders answer 100% shared leadership, 94% stated self-efficacy, and 80% said collaboration. During the December PLI shared leadership session, asked building leaders to reflect on the type of leaders they are. This table represents those 135 responses. Note the decrease in responses from 213 to 135. In February, we received 175 responses from participants regarding their learning around building consensus and effective communication. To this open-ended question, the leadership response broke down into 30% stated inclusion of all voices, 25% responded consensus, 20% responded communication, 15% responded relationships, and 10% stated transparency. We asked how much this session helped them build their leadership team. In responses, 25% stated with consensus building and strategies, 20% responded discussion with colleagues, and 15% stated both great feedback from the Shared Leadership Committee and the inclusion of all voices. The last question of what is one effective communication strategy you learned today, 35% of building leaders responded build consensus, 25% responded invite your team members. 20% responded both collaborative decision-making and inclusion of all voices. Looking at the work in the high school climate equity liaisons, both Cycle 1 and Cycle 2, this is also the first year for this work with professional learning communities have with the climate equity liaisons, where students are participating in those professional communities with assigned roles. And the next slides will refer to this data. This graph is identifying the number of PLC meetings held each month in the high school region. We see an increase in the number of meetings from November to January. However, it is important to note that not all high schools have held consistent meetings. During the meetings held, students and climate equity liaisons discussed the following topics. The top 3 include staff-student relations, student-student relations, and school safety. This slide demonstrates the type of data that was analyzed at each meeting. Overall, student voice at the meeting is the most accessed data source.
Thank you, Dr. Hernandez. As we look towards the rest of this school year and look ahead to the 24-25 school year, we're looking to expand this work in each area. For the board resolution on shared leadership, we will continue to plan bi-monthly professional learning during the Principal Leadership Institute, and we also are going to incorporate much of this work in the 6 days that are planned for the continuous improvement school planning retreats, 2 days in June and 4 in August. For the Central Region, we'd like to expand our implementation of PLCs region-wide around literacy, K grade, and grades K through 5, and continue the professional development for building leaders around facilitating and supporting the PLCs in their buildings. In addition, we hope to expand and continue science of reading professional development and coaching from both internal coaches and our external coaches at CESA 1. For the high school region, we continue to hold office hours twice a month on alternating days and times so that we ensure we're reaching all of our liaisons. We also have developed a system of support through written requests for support from liaisons so that they can receive guidance at any time they need. In addition, professional development on the climate PLC participants in the Student Leadership Summit in the spring will occur. And finally, through ongoing input, the liaisons continue to identify needed resources and supports that shape the work. Dr. Hernandez?
Yeah, in closing, I would like to thank Dr. Posley and his cabinet for all their support with this work, Dr. Jones and Mr. Ketterer for their guidance, collaboration, and support, Mrs. Doyle for her support in aligning all the resources at CESA to support MPS, and of course, I want to thank each of you for your time and attention this evening, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Director Gokul Gandhi.
Can you talk a little bit about the corresponding data to these indicators? So how do you know that this is working? Like, what are we supposed to see in terms of numerical difference in the way things are going in our buildings or the way that students are showing up and feeling about their school environments?
Administration.
Thank you, Director Gokul Gandhi, and members of the board. Jennifer Hernandez, Urban School Transformation. The data, I'm sorry, could you repeat your question? I got caught up in my
Yeah, not a problem.
speaking.
I'm just wondering what is the corresponding data to show that all of this coordinated support is moving metrics. So whether it's teacher retention, that the climate surveys are looking better. I'm just wondering how we really measure that this work, this qualitative work and the support work is changing our school environments.
Correct. Thank you for that. I apologize again. Yes, so this first year when we're looking at the phase of implementation, we're really looking at changing adult behavior. And so as we guide the changing in adult practices within the systems of the school district, that can help impact, of course, student learning. So as we look at the data directly related to what we're seeing in walkthroughs, to what we're seeing in the feedback from the PLIs, and what we're seeing in the feedback from the climate equity liaisons in the high school, we can gauge where they need more support to increase that practice, in the hopes that in the second and third year of this initiative, we would see that move student achievement numbers.
Follow-up?
Thank you.
Yeah, so as you come back, it would be helpful to see that data, those actual metrics in the chart so that we can have some like baseline data. And then as we continue into year 2 and year 3, it would be nice to see if there is or isn't a progression so then we can adjust our strategies, our school-based strategies.
Absolutely. Thank you. We will.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from board directors? Yeah, Director O'Halloran.
Thank you. On one of the slides, it says, what is one thing you can do to build trust and collaborate with teams? And I was just wondering what the follow-up is on that, because I'll just use myself as an example, like all the self-knowledge in the world. Like if I'm stressed and I grab coffee instead of water, like it's, unless I take action, all the self-knowledge isn't going to do me any benefit, right? So I'm just wondering if there are any efforts to go beyond, okay, now that I've identified communication is an area that we need to improve, or I need to improve upon, how do I take that next step to actually implement that?
Administration.
Thank you, Director Halloran, for your question. Yes, so this data that we take then feeds into our planning meetings where we collaboratively decide what the next steps are for the Principal Leadership Institute. And even today, Mr. Ketterer and I met with the district leadership and APLC to talk about how to implant a more effective and reciprocal communication system based solely off this data.
Follow-up? No? All right. Director Gokul Gandhi.
One thing I've noticed too is that oftentimes we focus on a principal's locus of control, which is their school building, but there's also a two-way street with the administration and central office. And so is that a part of the plan to sort of quantify how principals are getting support from central office and maybe how we can strengthen what we're providing them here?
Yes, Director Kakandi and members of the board, yes, today actually in our district leadership meeting that we had, our PLC, Dr. Cotton and Mrs. Mims-Howe was there to talk about how we move not only communication between central office into the regions, but then from there to the building, to the community, and then reciprocally how it goes back up that same line, back to the superintendent.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, also this whole team meets with myself along with the senior cabinet on an ongoing basis. I think it's monthly. It seems like it's more than that, but they meet with us and go through those same things that we're dealing with when it comes to shared leadership, whether it's the reading piece or whether it's the climate and culture piece, to walk through looking at how we build safety nets to make sure that all of our staff is moving forward as well as all of our students are moving forward. So there is a number of opportunities that is shared, and then I have a one-on-one with the state superintendent as well in regards of findings from the various committees. So it is going from bottom up and top down as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions? No. All right. Madam Secretary, do we have any members of the public who wish to make comments?
Madam Chair, we had no request to speak on this item.
Thank you very much. Seeing no other hands up here, thank you so much for that update. Really appreciate it. Have a great night. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item 3, action on a request for mutual termination of the non-instrumentality charter school contract with Milwaukee Excellence, Inc. for Milwaukee Excellence Charter School. The recommendation is that the board approve the mutual termination of the non-instrumentality charter school contract with Milwaukee Excellence, Inc. for Milwaukee Excellence Charter School to be effective on the last regularly scheduled day of the 2023-2024 school year.
Thank you. I'd just like to make a note that Director Zambor has joined us, and administration, would you please present this item?
Madam Chair and members of the committee, we are asking for your approval of a mutual termination of the non-instrumentality charter contract with Milwaukee Excellence. I have with me Bridget Schock, Director of Contracted Schools, to provide details of this item, and after which the team is here and we're prepared to answer any questions that you may have in regards to this item. Bridget.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Simpson, members of the committee, Bridget Schock, Director of Contracted School Services. On February 2nd, administration received a written request from Milwaukee Excellence for a mutual termination of their charter contract. They currently have about 240 students enrolled in grades 6 through 12. 36 of those students will be graduating seniors. The administration has a detailed closure plan, and it's shared among all of our departments. Some of those include recruitment efforts, making sure like financial planning, categorical funding, those types of things are encumbered. And then lease termination will be presented this month as well to the AFMP. And then we will continue to monitor high-quality instruction at the school and walk and make sure that that continues into the last regularly scheduled day. And their last day is May 21st. At this time, we can answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Do members of the committee wish to make comments or ask questions? Director Leonard.
Well, some curiosity, but what was their number? So you said 240 are the current enrollment?
Administration.
Chair Simpson, members of the committee, Bridget Schock, Director of Contracted School Services. Yes, that is correct.
And what did they have? What was their enrollment when we redid the work in 2021, I think it was? I'm not sure if he remembers. I'm just curious.
Yeah. Chair Simpson, members of the committee, Bridget Schock, Director of Contracted School Services. They were probably around 450, 475. They decided to not provide transportation. They lost a lot of families because of that. So this year they dropped significantly to about 240 kids.
Okay, you answered my third question. Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other comments or questions from members of the board? All righty. Do any members of the public wish to make comments on this item?
Madam Chair, we have no request to speak on this item.
What is the pleasure of the board with respect to this item? Director O'Halloran?
I move approval of administration's recommendation to approve the mutual termination of the non-instrumentality charter school contract with Milwaukee Excellence.
All right. Any further discussion? All right, Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll?
On the motion by Director O'Halloran to approve the administration's recommendation, Director Carr.
Abstain due to the appearance of a conflict of interest.
Director Gokul Gandhi.
Aye.
Director Leonard.
Aye.
Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
And Chair Simpson.
Aye.
That's 4 ayes, 1 abstention. The motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item 4, action on a request to approve the instrumentality charter school contract with Green Tree Preparatory Academy, Inc. for Green Tree Preparatory Academy. The recommendation is that the board approve the 3-year instrumentality charter school contract with Green Tree Preparatory Academy, Inc. for Green Tree Preparatory Academy to begin with the 2024-25 school year and end on the last regularly scheduled day of the 2026-2027 school year.
Would administration please present this item?
Madam Chair and members of the committee, at the December 14th SASI meeting, the committee directed the administration to bring the Green Tree Preparatory Academy contract renewal back to the March SASI meeting with an action plan requiring Green Tree Preparatory to be reviewed every 6 months. This evening, we're asking for your approval for this contract, including the plan that outlines the 6-month reviews. And at this time, I will ask Bridget to walk us through, and after which we'll be more than happy to entertain any questions that you may have in regards to this. Bridget.
Chair Simpson, members of the committee, Bridget Schock, Director of Contracted School Services. So this is the last step in our renewal process. In February, administration, in collaboration with the Office of Board Governance and the city attorney and representatives from the school, met and agreed upon the attached contract. A summary of the proposed contract modifications is attached with the highlighted items illustrated in that attachment are specific to Green Tree. All the other items are requested of the instrumentality charter school model contract. As the board meeting in December, it was requested to report back to the board. And so I wanted to share some highlights about this charter school and what they've done as a result of the feedback from the charter school review team and the board. I'm happy to report that they have a detailed plan for professional development that can be found in a attachment to the item for under Appendix A. Some of this includes lesson planning, specifically around teaching and learning practices and engagement, and then making sure of providing student feedback to students. In addition, they have restorative practices that they're implementing and working with to make sure that that is a constant throughout the school. And one part of their charter school contract was the 7 skills for success, and they partnered with Alverno College to be able to provide that professional development along with a rubric to outline how to look for that implementation within the classroom. Since we've been there, the Department of Contracted School Services, along with our regional team, have been out and done walks, and we're noticing that there's student-teacher relationships are developed and further established than when we were there in October. When asked, students were able to articulate what they were learning and relate it to real life. There was a noticeable increase in student engagement in the classroom, and an increase in the use of technology that was appropriate to the learning. And then with that, the appendices included in the amended educational program outline a professional development plan, as well as all the other attachments that are included in the contract. At this time, we can answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you. If it's okay with committee members, I know we have 2 members of the public who wish to speak. I'm seeing nods of heads. So our first speaker slip is for Ingrid Walker-Henry.
Good evening, Ingrid Walker-Henry, WALKER-HENRY, MTE President. There are numerous areas of concerns that MTEA has with the contract, appendices, and MOU for Green Tree brought forward this evening. One that I want to address this evening is Appendix J, Item 3.4, which is a new addition. 3.4 is in conflict with employee rights and also conflicts with Resolution 1920-003 adopted by the board regarding the teacher workday. Within the documents, there exists a newly created sample schedule that is in conflict with Resolution 1920R-003. Middle and high school principals can convene staff during non-student contact time for 30 minutes, 2 days a week, and for professional development. Employees at Green Tree must have the same rights as all other teachers across the district. This item is not ready for board approval. It needs to be pulled and fixed before this board can responsibly sign it.
Thank you. Our next speaker slip is Amy Mizialko.
Amy Mizialko, Mizialko. This afternoon, MTA attorney was in contact with the city attorney. I've been in contact with contracted schools for a couple of days to no avail. And so I'm here to ask the superintendent and to ask the chair and the members of the SASI committee to intervene on this matter. There are 50 administrative policies and procedures under Chapter 6, Staff Rights and Responsibilities, that are missing in this contract, including but not limited to equal employment opportunity, anti-harassment, anti-bullying, tobacco product use on board property, drug-free workplace, and student non-fraternization. There are 65 administrative policies and procedures under Chapter 8 students that are not included in Appendix B. And the MTE attorney learned from the city attorney that it is the administration's position that these don't apply to the workers at Green Tree, nor do they apply to the children who attend Green Tree. Those student policies and procedures under Chapter 8 include but are not limited to student non-discrimination, complaints and appeals, truancy, anti-sexual harassment, student rights, responsibilities, and discipline, weapons in schools, student expulsion, locker searches, interviews of students by law enforcement, and removal of students from school by Child Protective Services. 8.27, student complaints and grievances. 8.33, student expulsion. 8.52, bullying. This is a brief list. I'm asking for this item to be pulled for the superintendent, contracted schools, and the SASI committee to please intervene and take responsibility to address these issues that have been shared with you tonight and to bring this back to the full board next week. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I pass the gavel?
Okay, wow, physically, gavel passed.
Thank you.
Director Simpson, Chair
Thank you.
Simpson.
I don't know if this has to be a motion. I guess I would just ask that this item just be pulled until, pushed to the final board meeting and presented at that time. So I don't know if it would be a motion to move this item forward without recommendation, or if it has to be more specific, that administration work with some of the groups identified, bring it back that final board meeting.
Madam Chair, if you were to advance it to the board without recommendation, the expectation would be that the full board would be acting on it. So it may be more prudent to simply make a motion to hold the item in committee.
Okay.
That will keep it pending with this committee, and then the administration could work with the chair to determine when it's able to be brought back.
Right, administration, would we be able to do that?
Madam Chair and members of the committee, yes, we would be more than happy to do that, but I just want to have the city attorney to address a comment that was made, basically to our understanding that this contract is between Green Tree Preparatory as well as the Board of Directors, and it's our responsibility as the administration to work through and to foster to make sure this contract and guidelines are basically followed. So I just would like to ask the city attorney to address the comment that this is administration's option to be able to do this.
Go ahead.
Chair Simpson, members of the committee, Jordan Shettle from the Milwaukee City Attorney's Office. If I'm understanding Superintendent Posley's question correctly, regarding the Appendix B portion, those are just specific. So I guess to pull it back for a more historical viewpoint, charter schools were created in the 90s in Wisconsin as an alternative form of education. They are public schools, but they do not have the same responsibilities as a traditional public school would. Particularly, they are not required to follow Wisconsin's statute chapters 115 through 121. They do have to follow federal regulations and rules, but there is leeway as to what they have to follow and not follow. For this particular contract, the specific items in the Appendix B that were called out were to make sure that Green Tree were to be following those specific policies. There are multiple other areas within the contract that calls for Green Tree to follow MPS policy regarding discipline. They have to follow all MPS policies and procedures regarding discipline. They have to follow all requirements within the parent and student handbook. There are requirements regarding student access to the internet. There's requirements regarding following the health policies of MPS. So it's not just that the 6 or 7 items on the Appendix B are the only policies and procedures that Green Tree have to follow. It's just that we called those out in support of the contract to make sure Green Tree was following those. But the other ones, there are other ones that still apply to Green Tree. Ultimately, though, the point for Green Tree and charter schools is that they are alternative education settings, that they don't follow the exact same policies and procedures as MPS. We've contracted for years with charter schools explicitly outlining which specific, the same sort of setup in contracts. Haven't run into issues there. It's not, this isn't a new issue being brought before the board. This is simply an updated version to renew a contract that's already existing.
Thank you for that clarification. I know I'm supposed to
I'm going to
pass the gavel
back to you. Do you want to give it to me?
I'm going to pass it back to you.
Oh, okay.
I'll pay attention to this time, though.
Thank you so much. Director Simpson, do you have any follow-up?
Thank you. Yes, I do. There were those items, but also, some other items were brought to my attention today, and I just know personally I would not be able to vote for the contract as it is presented to us this evening, and would like for there to just be some time for conversations to happen and maybe some clarifying points to be brought back in the contract so that things are just very clear. So I guess that would be my motion. That would be come back to committee, hold it in committee, yes.
Madam Secretary, I'm not actually sure who to go to right now. Administration? Madam Secretary? Go ahead. I'm actually asking you for guidance. Are we going to administration first?
You could ask the administration if they have comments on the motion, otherwise.
Do you have comments on the motion,
Madam
administration?
Chair, members of the committee, the only comments that we have that we look forward to working together and coming back to the full board with an answer.
Okay, Madam Secretary. I'm going to pass the gavel back to you if you're done with your comments.
I am done.
Okay, great. Here you go. Gavel's passed.
Thank you. Director O'Halloran.
Thank you. One thing that would be really helpful for me as the discussions advance would be understanding how, if these appendices differ from other instrumentality charter contracts that we currently have. Just because I recognize that the list that was presented, you said in, I think, Appendix B, it's not exhaustive, that there is an underlying set of expectations. These specific ones were called out, not because those are the only ones. So it would just be helpful to understand if we have like a boilerplate instrumentality charter contract, and then like how this would differ from that. And then also my other question, so I don't know if you need to respond to that tonight, because it sounds like this discussion is going to be continuing. But Bridget looks like she's got something to say.
Administration.
Thank you. Chair Simpson, members of the committee, Bridget Schacht, Director of Contract to School Services. So the only changes are redlined in this contract. Okay. The same for all of our other instrumentality charter schools within the district. So that is not anything different than what we already have in all of our other instrumentality charter schools. The only requests that are different are specific to, and I can walk through, there is a document, the first attachment is that it's between Green Tree. So this item is made between Green Tree and the board. So that's named. It shows the location of the school. It names the person in charge of the school. And then language relating to financial and performance audits. So they chose method 2 to have an outside auditor conduct their performance and financial audits. And then we have language reflecting that they're using our methods for disciplining students, so they follow the MPS handbook for student and parents. They also follow the MPS employee handbook, which is also outlined in the charter school contract under paragraph section C. So those are two things that they're following to address the comment before. The other item is to recognize that they're having 600 FTE pupils. The terms of the contract is 3 years, and that technical revisions have been made throughout Appendix A, and those revisions were feedback that was provided from the last charter school review team, and then the recommendations from the board. So the charter school, this contract is no different than any other charter contracts that have been approved from the past.
Follow-up, Director O'Halloran.
Thank you for that overview. My next question is just if we're holding it within committee, recognizing that April is an atypical board month. So is this then the expectation that it comes back as an item at the full board meeting in April. And I would love to hear from administration if that is acceptable, yeah.
Yeah.
Timeline. Administration?
Yeah, Chair Simpson, members of the committee, Bridget Schock, Director of Contract to School Services. So we're kind of on a tight deadline here. DPI needs a signed contract in order for Green Tree to receive the Wisconsin Charter School grant, an extension of which they did receive previously. So we're asking, for approval. I can always ask for an extension from DPI, but that is something that they've received and a recipient of, and there's a deadline for them to receive the signed contract as well.
Madam Chair and members of the committee, I think this is something that we could get together on and hopefully have an answer by the full board. I would rather shoot for that first than to push it off and take a risk of the school not receiving the grant.
Director O'Halloran?
Based on that new information, I would like to make a substitute motion that we forward it to the full board without recommendation and see if we can hammer this out, rather than holding it in committee and potentially put at risk funding. So, Madam Secretary, do you have the substitute? Okay, thanks.
Right, Director Zambor?
Thank you, Chair Simpson. I do have a couple questions, and I just want to acknowledge that I know just because based on state statutes, they don't have to follow certain laws, that doesn't mean that we as charter authorizers can't hold them to those standards. And I think that we have an obligation as charter authorizers to make sure that that we're protecting students and staff. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. And then also, I do have a question about Appendix A on page 7 and 8. I know when we did the charter review, the springboard curriculum was no longer going to be available, and it looks like the springboard curriculum was redlined, but nothing was replacing that. Can Ms. Schock comment on what the plans are for that?
Administration?
Yeah, Chair Simpson, members of the committee, Bridget Schock, Director of Contract to School Services. So we struck out the curriculum and focused more on the philosophy and the theory of the mode for delivery. The springboard for ELA is going to be used and can be used. It's math, and they're going to follow most likely the district adopted curriculum. For social studies and science, they already follow the district adopted curriculum. For ELA, they're going to explore some options. We also were focusing on really providing feedback and intentionally thinking about instructional practices as well, and what does that look like within the classroom.
Follow-up, Director Zambor?
Yes, and then I have another question about restorative practices. I know when we did the review, a lot of our student focus groups, it wasn't apparent that they were actually implementing the restorative practices, so I understand they're saying they're going to be doing that, but how are we monitoring that?
Administration?
Yeah, Chair Simpson, members of the committee, Bridget Schock, Director of Contract to School Services. So Green Tree has the luxury of having a regional team as well as the Contract to School Services team to help provide support. So there's multiple touch points where we've been in the school to see implementation. The school has started to put the restorative circles into their advisory and restructured what that advisory time looks like, and so that happens daily. They're also implementing it within their professional development days on Thursdays, so they have a half day on Thursdays that they can provide to staff, that professional development, so that's also being implemented. Yep.
Follow-up, Director Zambor?
Okay, and then last question. If the committee decides to move it forward to the full board without recommendation, you can still modify this, correct? Like nothing's going to stop you from modifying it if you need to.
Administration?
So the contract is in collaboration with the Office of Board Governance, the city attorney, as well as administration and representation of the school. So within the next week, we'll have to get together and follow that process as outlined in 9.12.
Follow-up, Director Zambor? Okay. Director Leonard, was that a hand? No, okay.
Just a general comment that with all this being brought up, I definitely want us to relook at all of this before we make a decision. This makes me uneasy when we start bringing all this up, and so I don't just go ahead and push this forward. But speed is of the essence, but I think we can definitely do that, and I don't find that to be problematic. But we'd have to be ready by next week, Thursday, correct? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
And administration, just to kind of go back to that point, it looks like we're either going to have to do this in a bit of a hurry, or it's pushed back until the month of May. I don't know you didn't mention the exact deadline that you need this back by, but I'm just looking to you is that doable for next week?
Madam Chair and members of the committee, yes, we will make that happen. We have about 5 work days until that time, and we have to make it work. But it's the idea, if we are not able to do that, we will share that with you on Thursday of next week. But our goal is to pull the team together and all the powers that be in order to make sure we could get this all worked out. And we will be back before you with our recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, I just want to clarify one point. If for some reason this isn't able to be acted on in March, you wouldn't have to bypass April just because there's no committee meetings. You would simply make a motion to discharge it from committee, and you could handle it in April. However, that meeting is at the end of April, so that's something to keep in mind.
Right. Any comments from committee about that? New information? All right. Okay, so I believe we do have a motion on the table.
That's correct. You have a substitute motion.
Substitute motion. Would you mind just reading that?
The substitute motion is to advance this item to the board without a recommendation.
Okay, any further discussion by members of the board? All right, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On that motion, Director Carr.
Aye.
Director Gokul-Gandhi.
Aye.
Director Leonard.
Aye.
Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
And Chair Seamson.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes. The motion passes.
Thank you, thank you. Next item, please, Madam Secretary.
The next item is item 5, action on a request to approve an agreement with Milwaukee Area Technical College for at-risk students. The recommendation is that the board approve the agreement with Milwaukee Area Technical College for at-risk students as defined in Wisconsin Statute Section 118.15 for the 2024-25 school year.
Would administration please present this item?
Madam Chair and members of the committee, we are asking your approval for an agreement with Milwaukee Area Technical College for at-risk students. I will have Bridget Schock, Director of Contracted School Services, to provide additional information, and after which we'll be more than happy to entertain any questions you may have. Bridget.
Good evening, Chair Seamson, members of the committee. Bridget Schock, Director of Contracted School Services. So this is an annual item that we bring every year. We love having the partnership with MATC for students who are at risk of not graduating high school per the state statute. We've had this partnership for over 20 years and has been really successful. The Emerging Scholars Program provide young people with an opportunity to earn credits towards high school graduation. They also get to participate in technical courses that are offered by MATC, and this year we have almost 100% of our kids who have applied for MATC when they graduate from this program for the next one, so we're excited about that. The students love being on campus. They love being a part of the adult high school program. They feel like grown-ups, and they are able to collaborate with other students in a different light, so it's a great program. So at this time, I can answer any questions that you might have.
All right, do members of the committee wish to make comments or ask questions? Director Leonard.
Just a positive comment. So I've tutored with some of those students over time. So yeah, it's a very well-run program, very well accepted. Definitely a big plus for MPS to be matched up with MATC.
Thank you, Director Leonard. Director Gokul-Gandhi? Oh, okay. Yes, go ahead.
I move that we request the agreement with the Milwaukee Area Technical College for at-risk students.
Thank you. Before we go to that motion, are there any members of the public who wish to make comments on this item?
Madam Chair, we have no request to speak on this item.
All right, any further discussion? Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On the motion by Director Gokul Gandhi to approve the administration's recommendation, Director Carr.
Aye.
Director Gokul Gandhi.
Aye.
Director Leonard.
Aye.
Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
And Chair Simpson.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes, the motion passes.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item 6, transmittal of and possible action on the Achievement Gap Reduction Program's end of semester report. This is an informational item. Although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Would administration please present this item?
Madam Chair and members of the committee, this evening, a report on presentation on the Achievement Gap Reduction Program will be presented by Allison Foyer, Early Childhood Supervisor, and after which we'll be more than happy to answer any questions. Ms. Foyer.
Good evening, Chair Simpson, other members of the committee. I am Allison Foyer, the Early Childhood Supervisor, and I'm here to provide a mid-year report on the Achievement Gap Reduction Program. As such, this update is a contractual requirement mandated by the Department of Public Instruction for the AGR program. The goal of the Achievement Gap Reduction Program is to improve the academic outcomes for the neediest learners within 5-year-old kindergarten through 3rd grade. The expectation is in alignment with and supportive of the district's first priority of success, increasing academic achievement and accountability. Currently, we are in year 3 of ambitious instruction with this year's focus on collaborative learning. We align our work to the strategic plan and continue to support student achievement to ensure they are successful as they embark on their education and are prepared to graduate and achieve success with their post-secondary choices. The Achievement Gap Reduction Program operates within 63 schools and 1 non-instrumentality charter school. The following are the demographics for this program. Currently, 10,687 students are enrolled, with 21.3% being English language learners, 22.2% receiving special education services, and 81.3% identified as economically disadvantaged. Overall, the program is diverse and supports students through culturally responsive practices. District-wide, the AGR program implements 2 strategies: class size reduction in K-5 and instructional coaching for all students participating in the program K-5 through 3rd grade. This program abides by the belief that gaps will close when teachers have the instructional supports available, which empower them to create high-quality environments and responsive classrooms, which in turn should result in increased student achievement. Thus, it is through the ambitious instruction district-wide focus that leaders, support staff, and teachers are provided a multi-level system of support in the areas of collaboration, balanced assessment, high-quality instruction, and culturally responsive practices within English language arts, reading, and math. These content areas are supported by the AGR office through multiple activities that support students as they work toward the proficiency of grade-level content. As been previously mentioned, the Achievement Gap Reduction Program requires the school board to review the implementation and the progress toward achieving performance objectives at the end of every semester. For the purpose of this update, data from the standards-based report card was utilized because the school district does not uniformly assess K-5 through 3rd grade elementary students using a progress monitoring tool such as STAR. The report card information allows for data gathering on children to be linked directly to standards being taught and provides a continual data point on student progress, since the goal is to increase proficiency by the end of the year. This slide reflects an analysis of data comparing fiscal year 2023 to fiscal year 2024, standards-based report card grading for English language arts, reading, and math content from trimester 1. This data is reflective of students in grades K-5 through 3rd grade enrolled in an AGR school. This data point provides a foundational basis for tracking progress toward proficient and advanced levels by the end of the school year. The following results were revealed. Trimester 1 results show that the percentage of AGR students with proficient and advanced scores increased for K-5 and 3rd grade in the areas of ELA and math. Additionally, 2nd grade students showed improvement in all 3 areas. A supportive endeavor has been the collective efforts provided by the Ambitious Instruction Initiative. It continually works on equipping teachers with more differentiation and scaffolding strategies, so instruction is more personalized and social emotional considerations are enhanced. This has been accomplished through the various aligned professional development opportunities provided to school leaders, school support teachers, and instructional staff. Professional development offerings like play clinics and counting collections and small group instruction provide background for implementing developmentally appropriate practices that enhance language, literacy, and mathematics skill. Moreover, to further progress with these initiatives, support is provided by both district-based and school-based coaches. The AGR office will continue to collaborate on the work in this area with curriculum instruction and research, assessment, and data. The AGR office continues to provide educators, both teachers and coaches, with some direct service supports for Tier 1 in the following ways. Professional development targeting best practices for early learners is offered at teacher institutes. Early childhood resources were made available through a newsletter. And finally, Lexia Core 5 is a Tier 1 comprehensive technology-based literacy program that provides explicit, differentiated, systematic, personalized learning in the 6 areas of reading instruction: phonological awareness, phonics, structural analysis, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. Results indicate a positive impact for those students that use the program with fidelity, which is 20 to 80 minutes a week. 10 schools, with 9 of them being AGR schools, continue to utilize the Lexia Core 5 program with pre-kindergarten and kindergarten students to support foundational literacy, skill, and development. To date, the pre-K data shows that 50% of the students who use the program with fidelity are working on skills above their grade level. 80% of kindergarten students who use the program with fidelity are currently working at grade level, while 16% are working at skills above grade level. As such, the AGR office continues to support the district as it works to maintain a strong hold on the direction of the educational and operational path used to support the MPS community. In order to further anchor students and provide continuous learning, the AGR office had the following accomplishments from August 2023 to February 2024. Implemented the Lexia Core 5 reading program within 9 AGR schools. Educators from AGR schools joined a cohort program focused on small group instruction, and we monitored AGR enrollment and coaching support plans to improve instructional practices. Moving forward, the AGR office will focus on the following until the end of the year. We'll continue to monitor and support teacher coaching plans and small group instruction, build on foundational skill improvements with continued oversight of the fidelity of implementation of the Lexia Core 5 program, and provide an early childhood focus within the strategies executed as part of the ambitious instruction plan. This concludes the update. I'd be more than happy to respond to any questions you may have.
Thank you so much. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Director Leonard.
So I'm looking at the Lexia Core 5, page 7, and that is a significant difference from the start level to the end level. So I'm curious, I have a couple of questions that go with that. First of all, when we say that that program, the Lexia Core, is only being taught at 9 of our AGR schools, is there a reason why only 9?
Administration?
Chair Simpson, Director Leonard, and other members of the committee, Chrissy Washington, Early Learning Manager. Lexia Core 5 has been implemented for 3 years now, and it has always been funded as it was a pilot initially, and so there was a small core group of schools, and so we've just continued to implement it at those schools based upon the funding that was available to do so.
Follow-up, Director Leonard.
Yes. So if we had more funding, that would be the direction we could go into. And out of curiosity, what kind of funding are we talking about? Just out of curiosity, per school?
Administration?
Director Simpson, Chair Simpson, Director Leonard, and other members of the committee, Chrissy Washington, Early Learning Manager. The program is based upon like a site license, so it was a package with the vendor, Lexia. So I do not necessarily have a per school amount, but it was a contracted amount for the number of schools that are participating.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, we would be more than happy to get that information to you ASAP and prior to the full board.
Thank you. Director Leonard?
That'd be good, thank you.
That's it? All right. Director Gokul Gandhi?
I would really like that because then when you look at slide 6, when you look at reading, only one school had an increase in their proficiency. Correct? I'm reading that correctly?
Administration?
Director Gokul-Gandhi, Chair Simpson, Allison Foyer, Early Childhood Supervisor. Yes, that is correct. The second grade made gains in all 3 areas, whereas, the K-5 and first and third grade did not in reading.
Director Gokul Gandhi?
So then would Alexia be an intervention for those other 3 grades?
Administration?
Chair Simpson, Director Gandhi, and other members of the committee, the Lexia Core 5 is intended to be a Tier 1 support. It is not meant to be utilized as an intervention. The schools will continue to utilize the board-approved implemented program that is used for intervention.
Thank you. And just, names are important, so it's Director Gokul Gandhi. I know her name's been said many ways tonight, so Gokul Gandhi.
I appreciate that. I have a follow-up question.
Oh, yep, go ahead.
So then, as we look at going into 25, how are we going to address the decreases here?
Administration.
Chair Simpson, Director Gokul Gandhi.
Thank you.
And other
That was
members
excellent.
of the committee. AGR is part of early childhood, which is under the umbrella of curriculum instruction. We'll continue to implement the strategies that were part of the ambitious instruction. So it's really and truly looking at what is being provided as the explicit instruction and focusing on targeted small groups, as well as really looking at the individuals who have participated with the letters trainings and seeing how they're applying those strategies as well. So it's a multifaceted, observation of the things that are currently being implemented and supported. So just monitoring and ensuring that what is regarded as being the best practices for teaching reading is being done with students.
Director Gokul Gandhi.
That's all, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions by board directors? All right. And just a request, could we have also, in addition to the dollar amount that you would like to see for the program, could we just have a list of the AGR schools? I know we've had that in the past. Thank you so much if that could be sent to board. All right, looks like that's it. Thank you very much for that report. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item 7, a report with possible action on art education. This is an informational item. Although it is noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Would administration please present this item?
Madam Chair and members of the committee, this evening we bring to you an update on the arts education presentation by Dr. Deborah Boland, Manager of Fine Arts. Following the presentation, we'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have in regards to this item. Dr. Boland.
Director Simpson, members of the committee, Dr. Deborah Bowling, Fine Arts Manager. I would like to give you an update this evening about art education. As always, we are following the 5 priorities for success and ambitious instruction in our classrooms to make sure that our students are being provided the best possible instruction in all of the content areas. We have some celebrations that we would love to share, and the first is the participation that has been continued to be very strong across the district, with students participating in the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. contest, as well as the Cesar Chavez contest. So you have some samples of some of those pieces to see. We are very excited this year that we had 15 schools that participated in creating murals for the Holiday Folk Fair. Some of those things you can see here as well. On our next slide, some other opportunities that our students have had to participate in. We have voting murals, and you can see 3 of them on the wall right over there, which is wonderful, as well as 2 samples that are on the slides. We also have winners in the Scholastic Art Fair. There has been participation in the STEM Fair Button Contest that the winner has not yet been selected. There has also been collaborations on projects at the War Memorial, and 5 high school students exhibited work at the Museum of Wisconsin Art Teen Exhibition. So we have a lot of things to be very excited about. In terms of staffing, we just have a couple updates. In terms of looking at what we had in October to current, in October we had a total of 16 new hires. We gained 5, so this year we have 21 total new hires, which brings the total art teachers from 130 to 135 across the district. When I presented in October, we had 10 schools that were using the RFP-approved vendors, and we gained 1 school that picked up services, making that 11. There are 12 schools that are not identified as having necessarily those 2 contracted services. However, they may be using a long-term substitute, a para, or other contracted services that would not necessarily be monitored through my office. For recruitment and retention, we still continue to provide all new teachers 1 year of coaching, content-specific through the Fine Arts Department, and teachers in years 2 through 3 have access to peer mentors. We have artist in residency programs to maintain our veteran teachers, to give them a little bit something to look forward to and add to their own personal development. Those programs are currently at Riley, King Elementary, German Immersion, Academy of Accelerated Learning, Clements, Morgandale, Golden Meyer, Bayview High School, Bruce, and Humboldt Park. And we also continue to have monthly cohort meetings and workshops for our visual art teachers. In 23-24, our ESSER funding continues to provide the 1 visual art teacher that is teacher leader that supports new art educators in traditional middle schools and high schools. Also, we have in 2021, that referendum funding also continues, and that provides 1 visual art teacher leader that supports new art educators in K through 8. We still have opportunities for teachers to request quality art materials via Google form, so that referendum, those dollars still continue to supplement all of those needs of our art teachers, and also provides licenses for the Art of Education, which is the approved curricular resource in the district. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them for you now.
Thank you. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? All righty. Go ahead, Director O'Halloran.
I don't know if you're able to speak to it tonight, but we have a referendum pending, and hearing about all of the advances that we've been able to make. I don't know if there are anything, any of these updates that we're concerned about having to roll back. I don't know if you can speak to that, but I think this is another opportunity to just educate board members, educate the public about what is potentially at risk if, the decisions that might have to be made. So I don't know if you're having any discussions in advance of that decision.
Administration.
Chair Seamson, Director O'Halloran, members of the committee, Dr. Deborah Bowling, Fine Arts Manager. Of course, we have concerns about all of those things. We're very, very thankful that we have the referendum from 2020 that will maintain many of those things. However, That being said, we have not gotten an update from Finance and Budget and HR to provide answers to those questions yet.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, we just completed all of the schools' budgets, and we could get you a total of what those numbers would be like. Anything that is under the ESSER budget that she referred to would automatically have to be cut and placed into the regular budget. So all of those positions that are there would be cut. However, there were some cuts that were in the no referendum budget, and I could get you prior to the full board those numbers. They are drastic numbers.
Thank you. Any follow-up, Director O'Halloran?
Thank you, Chair Simpson. And I don't, I know there's a lot of anxiety, and I'm not trying to add to that. I don't think it's very far from the top of anyone's mind, any decision makers, any staff, anybody's. You know, I think we're all thinking about it, but I just want to be clear that, you know, if things don't turn out the way that, you know, we're going to have to make some really tough decisions, and these are the types of things. And like the next item we're going to hear about is music, and I have a constituent who is she's so engaged with music, and I'm like, I want to do everything that you're asking me to because I know our students deserve it, but at the end of the day, I may not have all of the dollars that our students deserve. And so for anybody who's like, why are you talking about this? I'm not trying to increase anxiety. I'm just trying to be pragmatic about what's coming.
Thank you. Yes, and our students deserve all the dollars. Yes. Director Leonard.
So really, I know I'm supposed to speak not to Director O'Halloran, but I have to agree with her, and I know it increases anxiety, but I think we have to be very upfront and honest about it. And the same thing's happening to me, even in my own house. So there's just definitely a lot of questions, a lot of concerns. I use it as an opportunity to definitely support our schools and the referendum. I have to say something. I can't just be silent about it, but it is a concern, and yeah, I don't have any magic answers. I can say that much, but thank you.
Director Gokul Gandhi.
Okay, have to. And, you know, it's not just art and music. Earlier today, we heard from the deaf and hard of hearing schools, and when you think, they mentioned that the only other program that's comparable to this is in Green Bay. So my question is, right, the parents and the educators and the school community organized. They came to a school board meeting. They said, this is not working. We need you to fix this. And because we have a public accountability board here, they were able to use that space then to come back and say, hey, here's the steps we're taking. So I would like to know, like, where else in the city is that happening, that parents and students and people in the school community can come and say, fix this? Because I'm not seeing that at charter choice and voucher schools in this city. So just another point of consideration.
Thank you very much for that point of consideration, Director Gokul Gandhi. And I guess I would just encourage the listening audience who still has questions or concerns about the upcoming vote on the referendum to go to the MPS website, where there is information that you can review for yourself to make that determination on your own. So I'd encourage you to get the facts before you vote. Are there any other questions from the board or comments? Are there any members of the public who wish to make comments?
Madam Chair, we had no request to speak on this item.
Thank you. Thank you for that update. And Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item 8, a report with possible action on music education. This is an informational item. Although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Would administration please present this item?
Madam Chair and members of the committee, this evening we bring to you an update on our music education presented by Sherry Garcia, curriculum specialist. Following her presentation, we'll be more than happy to entertain any questions that you may have. Ms. Garcia.
Thank you, Dr. Posley. Chair Simpson, members of the committee, Sherry Garcia, music curriculum specialist, here to present our update on music education. We are focused on primarily increasing academic achievement and accountability, but I think anytime we can come together and talk about the things that are important to us, like students and music, we're also strengthening our communication and collaboration. We are working with all of the levers of ambitious instruction over the course of our music instruction, formative practices, explicit instruction, and certainly engagement. Focusing on student achievement as a part of our strategic plan. And an update on staffing for us. Very little change since the time we were here in October. We have a total of 122 music staff for the 23-24 school year. That includes 94 classroom teachers where they are serving in 89 schools. We have 23 traveling music teachers serving approximately 46 schools. We do have 3 music teacher leaders, and they are serving all of our schools, and they have 21 mentees. They work with our brand new teachers, teachers who are new to the district, and also teachers who are working on a certification program. And we have 2 instrument specialists, a general music instrument specialist and one that works primarily with band and orchestra in high school and middle school, and they're serving all schools as well. We do have music vacancies. We currently have 18 schools that are supported by the Wisconsin Conservatory, which is our RFP-provided music group. We do have 18 full-time positions that are available. These are all approximate. This is the numbers that I had in front of me a few weeks ago, and of course these are flexible in the coming changes that are happening. So 18 full-time positions, approximately, each of those in a single school, and then also some paired positions, a full-time position but serving 2 schools, and then a few part-time positions, about 4 of those. We are moving forward with our music plan for 7th and 8th grade. That was approved by the board in November. We did complete a community music survey, so the 6 largest K-8 schools completed that survey. We had more than 1,000 responses. It was a good result. And the school music communities picked their top choices. They chose band, choir, drumline, and mariachi for the top ensemble performance classes. These are the things that they would like to have in their school. They chose piano, guitar, and music technology for the top individual performance music classes. So schools will offer one of both of those in a combination. And then our paired positions for these new jobs will be posted in Cycle B. These are tentative pairings right now. We're looking at basically what the school survey results were, and we put schools together based on the commonalities between those things, but we want to include the best person for the job. So if we find people that are going to affect these pairings, they may not be exactly as you see them here. It'll be these 6 schools in some configuration. And then each school will also receive 6 additional hours of traveling music support to go along with the new halftime position. In planning for the future, I have undertaken a feeder pattern survey. Thanks to the lovely people at Dr. Mel's office, I've gotten a lot of data about where do our students live? How does that compare to where they go to school? Is it different between elementary, middle, and high school? And then I'm looking in particular to see that if our arts schools have a unique feeder pattern, if there's something different about how those students matriculate up from kindergarten through the 12th grade. And I've discovered some really interesting things so far, and it's leading me to think about, just for the future, perhaps a different model of how we fund our traveling music teacher support. Currently, there's a number of ways that comes to schools. There's a board policy that includes a required amount. Some schools have, from the 2020 referendum, a little bit of funding for traveling music that's included for them. It's also purchased as an optional service. And in good budget times, there's a lot of purchases. In lean budget times, there's fewer purchases. So I like to consider a model that's equitable so that our traveling music program is really put where it's needed. And so the schools that have really large, robust programs that are feeding a number of high schools, maybe they have the largest amount of traveling music support. Just thinking about what our students need to help them to get to the next level, whether that be going from elementary to middle, or from middle to high, or from high school to college. This kind of support is really unique in Milwaukee Public Schools and something that we're known for in other districts, and making that into a program that we can really be proud of would be something I'd like to look towards in the future. And then thinking about how we can fund that and afford that, that's all the next step in our plan. So we have a number of district events that are coming up, and some that have happened already. So about 500 people attended the Battle of the Drumlines. It was a great show this year with more drumlines than ever before. And Rufus King took home the trophy again. But Reagan and Washington, they were close behind. And Washington has not participated in this competition for many years. It was very exciting to see that group of students, how proud they were and what a good job they did. A couple of weeks ago, about 400 students attended the Wisconsin School Music Association Solo and Ensemble Contest at Rufus King. More than 100 students advanced, and they'll be performing at state at UWM in April. And then in a few weeks, we're going to be hosting a large group contest for our bands, choirs, and orchestras on April 9th through 12th. We host this at the Milwaukee Youth Arts Center, and students from dozens of MPS schools as well as a few suburban schools will be joining us. They'll perform for a judge on that day. And then, of course, our biggest event, the 50th, the Centennial Biennial Festival, that will be held on May 1st and 2nd. It's at 6:30 p.m. at the UWM Panther Arena. It's free and open to the public, and it's a real celebration of 100 years of making music in Milwaukee. The first one was in 1924, and here we are still doing it in 2024. There'll be over 5,000 young musicians there, bands, orchestras, choirs, modern bands, drumlines, harps, world drums, and a celebratory trumpet fanfare. I do have a video that's a preview of it's a retrospective of last festival, but it'll give you an idea of what to come in the next festival. At this time, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Who cannot watch kids performing, not just get a little choked up there? Thank you so much for sharing that. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Director Gokul-Gandhi. Oh, I'm sorry.
You better find a question.
Director O'Halloran.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
So I did receive an email from a constituent earlier this afternoon, and I apologize, I didn't get the chance to forward it on to administration. I did ask tonight that it be shared with all my colleagues on the board, and then we can share it. One of the questions was around the 6 hours of traveling music time. The question was, how will this be held accountable? The concern was if the traveling music time hours are, can they be absorbed into the budget in a different way? So like if they're allocated 6 hours of traveling music time, can they say, okay, well, I'd love to do that, but we as a school community feel like this other area would be more valuable. So is it specifically earmarked for the traveling music? I'm just going to keep talking until, or can it be absorbed in a different way and reallocated, I guess?
Administration.
Chair Simpson, Director O'Halloran, not really. It's allocated to a school, but it's also connected to an individual. So the person that's coming in to do the traveling music instruction isn't a certified teacher. It's not in the budget code for the school itself. It's in the budget code that I don't control it, but the budget code that I have the management of. And so when I say the school will get 6 hours of time, we'll divide that time probably between a couple people so that those hours will go to those individuals and then they will go to the school. It's my understanding that that is part of the referendum funding that's under my budgetary control.
Okay.
Follow-up?
The one other question that I was hoping to just hear a response on is for the 6 schools that are going to be paired. The concern is around vocal and instrumental and general instruction. And so does this get us to having all 3 of those, or is it going to be 2, or does this get us to all 3 for those 6 schools then?
Administration.
Chair Simpson and Director O'Halloran, it gets us very much closer. So there'll be in each of those schools a general music teacher that will primarily be responsible for K through 5, where much of the vocal instruction does take place. And then the additional teacher will be working with instrumental music most likely, and then something else. One of the other things that we mentioned, it could be music technology, it could be guitar or piano, it could be one of those additional things. And what we're asked by the DPI to do was to consult schools and see what they wanted for their own community, and the votes were very close. So instrumental and vocal music in almost every case were separated by 3 or 4 votes. So I think both things were very important to school communities. And I think it's important to find a person to direct this instruction who's also passionate about those things. So if band and choir were tied at your school and you have somebody that's already leading vocal instruction, I think we're going to find a band person for your school, because now we're adding to what's available to your music community, and giving both the school community and the teacher something they can be passionate about.
Director O'Halloran, any other questions? Great. Any other directors? No? Do we have members of the public who wish to make comments?
Madam Chair, we had no request to speak on this item.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you for that update, and I really appreciated the detailed work on the feeder patterns for the schools that you were doing. So really thank you for that detailed report and the updates. Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item 9, a report with possible action on the regional showcase, the high school region. This is an informational item. Although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Would administration please present this item?
Madam Chair and members of the committee, it gives me great pleasure this evening to introduce you to the High School Regional Showcase. I have with me Dr. Jennifer Smith, the Regional Superintendent for the High School Region. This evening, Dr. Smith, supported by the high school principals from James Madison Academic Campus, South, Marshall, Bayview, Audubon, and the assistant principal from Reagan, is here with us this evening to support this item, and they will be talking about the National Academy Foundation, NAF Academy. After the presentation, we'll be more than happy to entertain any questions that you may have. Dr. Smith.
Good evening, Chair Simpson, members of the SASI Committee. My name is Jennifer Smith, and I serve as the Regional Superintendent for the High School Region. I am pleased to present the High School Region Showcase this evening. The High School Region is supported by myself, along with Instructional Leadership Director, Mr. Greg Ogombowale. Tonight, we are joined in the audience by several of our high school principals as we review our regional efforts, as well as specifically highlight the NAF program. The leaders of the high school region and our regional team are committed to the implementation of the 5 priorities for success. Our work encompasses all of these areas daily, with a focus on increased student achievement front and center in our responsibility to support on-time graduation and students prepared for future success in college or career. The high school region is comprised of 26 schools, including Montessori, Immersion, International Baccalaureate, Bilingual, Career and Technical Education, Community Schools, Multi-Level Schools, Alternative Schools, and the Milwaukee Virtual Program. The high school region has served over 21,000 students year to date in these diverse settings to meet the varied needs of our high school students. Building on last year's attendance increases, the high schools continue to closely monitor attendance with the Everyday Counts message to our students and families. Attendance supports, including the modified check-in, check-out for attendance, are showing positive impacts to our students. This year, in addition to our overall attendance, we are keeping a special eye on our regular attenders. That is the number of students who have 90% attendance or better. That's a focus group for us this year. We have seen an increase of 1.3% across all of our high schools in those regular attenders. Also in the attendance areas, our staff attendance has improved this year. This 95% staff attendance rate results in consistency in our classrooms and overall a more positive experience in our schools. We are pleased to report that our suspension rate continues to decline. This data point is the suspension rate, so we have seen a 7.1% decrease in the number of students, the number of individual students suspended year to date. While we celebrate our successes in the high school region, we are also constantly looking at areas to improve. Within our discipline data, we continue to look at disproportionality and address inequities in our practices to support student behaviors. On the left, you will see data that we watch closely related to disproportionate suspensions of Black students as well as students receiving special education services. We are encouraged by practices that are growing and developing in our region. In our fall report to the board, I shared that our leaders were trained and have regular conversations around alternatives to suspension. On the right, you will see our year-to-date data that shows we are on track to show growth again this year in specific alternatives to out-of-school suspensions, specifically restorative conferences and community or school services. I quickly want to highlight 2 other opportunities for growth that have been focus areas in the high schools this year. First was the ACT preparation. We began this conversation in the summer with our professional development supported by research and assessment team to address misconceptions around the ACT and also develop a plan to support increased test participation and increased test scores. Each month, our leaders have shared their strategies to inform students, prepare students and staff, and this week, just March 12th, we took the ACT. It was a great day of testing in every high school. Finally, increasing engagement of students in the classroom has been a focus area of our region. Using the district walkthrough tool, we have conducted regional walks in addition to the school-based walks and are giving feedback to our leaders and school teams on the use of technology tools, use of district-approved materials, and academic practices that promote emotional, cognitive, and behavioral engagement. Tonight, rather than highlighting a specific school, we are spotlighting a program that promotes engagement and supports our students in reaching their goals for high school and beyond, the National Academy Foundation, or NAF. This is a nonprofit organization supporting high schools across the country. Their aim is to address the economic and social disparities that have marginalized too many students in this country by bringing schools and businesses together to better prepare students for a life of upward mobility and success. NAF takes students beyond what traditional high schools offer by providing access to the tools that will help them navigate and build skills for what is next, whether that's college, a career, or another pathway. Future leaders benefit from personalized career-connected learning when they enroll in our academies of engineering, finance, health sciences, hospitality and tourism, information technology, and additional programs of studies that are aligned with the National Career Cluster Framework. NAF academies are small learning communities within our high schools. Our academies offer career pathways or programs of studies that align with workforce needs in our community. Students engage in career-focused curricula and hands-on learning experiences backed by the NAF approach. On this slide, you will see the variety and diversity of the NAF academies offered across our high schools. Of note is Audubon, our newest NAF academy, which is the only 612 NAF academy in the nation. And I will also note that at Reagan, our academies of health sciences and information technology have received distinguished status from the NAF organization. And after this PowerPoint was submitted, we have learned that James Madison, South Division, and Bayview High School are being considered for distinguished status as well. And we will have the results of their rigorous interviews by the end of this month. The NAF academies are more than just a specialty program. To become a certified NAF academy, schools engage in a rigorous process of content and curriculum development and alignment. They create a course sequence to support students through their high school experience, and NAF schools must have a higher education and business partner to support and engage with students throughout the NAF experience. Our high school students, and in particular our NAF students, are very involved at this time of the year with sports and other organizations in addition to jobs. So tonight we have a video clip to share with you from 2 of our NAF students in the academy at Bayview.
My name is Elijah. I'm a sophomore at Bayview.
My name is Giovanni Vega. I'm a 12th grader, and I go to Bayview High School.
NAF Academy helps people prepare for life. They can give you certifications, they can give you scholarship opportunities, and they can put you a step above your peers
I like it because it like teaches me like work skills that I can put into the workplace at school.
The engineering course at Bayview has provided me things like field trip opportunities, and it's taught me how to 3D design, things that I wouldn't have learned at other schools that have really benefited my education.
More than just culinary, it's also professionalism, hospitality, and tourism. So the teacher has taught me many ways about how I should work about a job and how I should present myself to possible employers, or how I should treat customers, or how I should treat clients.
My favorite part about the engineering class was a field trip that I went on, where I was able to show people how the engineering process happens and some of the things that we've built.
Honestly, cooking and eating all the food after. We do a chili contest every year, and then we did banana pudding for Thanksgiving. I didn't cook that, but I ate it, and it was great. Yeah, because I'm introduced to the realities of life, well, at least working a job and the responsibilities that come with working a job while getting my education. So I believe more students need to be introduced to other things outside of just basic academic subjects such as math, science, and reading. I think because a lot of people, they don't plan on doing that, they just want to work.
I've built a miniature robot that can move and function, and I have fully designed doorknobs and a golf course. Currently, I am looking into mechanical engineering.
Right now, what I do for work is I'm a cook, and my teacher has told me to pursue working for the Fisker Hotel, and I'm thinking about that.
Thank you for your time.
And thank you for listening to what the NAV Academy can offer to students and MPS. And make sure.
Okay, as you heard in our student testimonial, the NAF program features a specialized curriculum developed with the current workplace needs and skills in mind. The students that participate in NAF are given opportunities for job shadowing, internship, and potential for dual enrollment. NAF students network with professionals in the fields that they are interested in at local businesses and institutes of higher learning. And our NAF teachers are supported by the nationwide network of teachers in their academies. Milwaukee Public Schools NAF teachers and administrators participate annually in the NAF conference to receive training and development in best practices around instructional techniques and the development of their academy content. The professional networking for our teachers keeps our NAF staff at the top of their profession and energized to support the NAF students. I would like to end this presentation with some thank yous. First to Mr. Greg Ogumbawale, who brought the NAF experience to Washington High School in 1999 when he was the principal there, and for encouraging the expansion of NAF in our high schools in his current position as the Instructional Leadership Director. NAF is also supported by our CTE department and the Office of Academics, specifically Eric Radomski, and we thank him for his ongoing support. And finally, I'd like to thank our NAF principals, many of whom are here this evening, for their leadership and hard work in supporting the NAF academies. I'll ask them to stand when their name is called. Ms. Holly Jacqueline, principal of Audubon Middle and High School. Mr. Jeff Gaddis, Bayview High School. Mr. Alonzo Fuller, James Madison Academic Campus. Mr. Stephen Howell, Milwaukee Marshall High School. Misa Sato, Assistant Principal, representing Mike Raymer from Ronald Reagan High School. And Mr. Jose Trejo, Principal of South Division High School. Thank you for nurturing this program in your buildings and encouraging your staff and students to embrace the challenges of NAF with an eye to the unique opportunities that NAF brings to our students. This is just a brief overview of the very exciting NAF program in Milwaukee Public Schools, and I'm able to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much. Do committee members wish to make comments or ask questions? Director O'Halloran.
Thank you. I will try to keep my comments brief because you all have been sitting here this whole entire time, and we so appreciate your patience. But I just want to say I serve on the advisory board for Bayview High School, and it's been an absolute pleasure. We just recently went through that quality review, and I at least based on the session I was involved in, I think we will definitely get it. I have reasons to, have hope in that. But it's just, we meet every month, we go over data, we sample the delicious food that Ms. Sims and the students are cooking up. We took on the challenge of kind of thinking about the pathways and making sure that they're attractive to students, not just something that we think is best, but, how to incorporate that student voice into it and make sure that that's something that they want to do. They've brought people in to speak. We had a speaker from Rockwell Automation, and he shared about how his pathway, he was like, I just really liked cars, and I wanted to be a mechanic, and my dad said no, and so he told me to go to engineering school, so I picked mechanical engineering because it sounded like that, and it was just really great to hear, for our students to hear from somebody who was like kind of first generation engineer and like how he had moved through his career. And I think it does make it much more accessible to our students to say, oh, okay, well, I could see myself doing that as well. And I know that at least one of the students raised their hands that they are going to apply for that summer internship. And I think that this is just a really valuable program. I know we've talked about it in the advisory board about the opportunities just for soft skills for some of our students. Like if it's your first time you're having a job, just going through the process of interviewing and how to interact in office settings and everything. And so if there are any board members who have the bandwidth to get involved with the advisory boards at their schools or partner with their schools to bring in, community partners, I think it is such a tremendous program, and I want to thank everybody, and I want to thank all the workplace learning specialists who bring all these opportunities in as well. So, and with that, I will just say thank you.
Thank you very much for those comments. Do any other board directors wish to make comments? Director Leonard.
So yes, I thank you. I appreciate your hard work. We've talked many times. We know how much work it is to run your schools, and I do appreciate that. My curiosity is piqued on the 95% staff attendance rate, so I'm curious what you attribute that to.
Administration.
I would venture to say this is, our move out of COVID and to a healthier workplace. I think we are very attuned to the needs of our staff and meeting the needs of our staff. In our regional meetings, we often talk about, the kind of the low points of the year and when our staff members need a boost. And we're coming up on that parent-teacher conference week, and we know that's a long week of many late nights. And so we try to, just do a little extra to meet the needs of our staff during those really difficult times. But I also think it's a commitment of our staff, and we work with a very talented group of educators who are committed to what they're doing.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments by committee members? Madam Secretary, are there any members of the public who wish to make comments?
Madam Chair, we had no request to speak on this item.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much for that update on the NAV program. It was valid. Can we just clap for everybody involved? Such a great opportunity for our students. Thank you so much for coming this evening. It was a pleasure to have you in our audience. Thank you for the work you do for our high schools. All right, Madam Secretary, next item, please.
Madam Chair, that was the last item on this meeting's agenda.
There is another meeting coming up for the listening audience if they wish to tune in.
Madam Chair, there will be a special meeting that will commence after a brief recess.
This is correct. There'll be no further business before this committee. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.